Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Please use DJ at ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are. It's Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And this is the Dark Night of the Soul.
Well, at least it is the discussion of the Dark Night of the Soul.
Do you know how long I've been waiting to use the mic that way so I get like right up on it? Kind of my Luther Vandross stuff.
All right.
Because we got these great Boss mics anymore. But I probably just still sound like some sort of asthmatic drug addict. But, you know, you got to rock what you got.
All right.
And tonight we are talking about the Dark Night of the Soul. This is a topic that came up. I guess you were looking at Tolle's website. I get, but that's his subscription site, I believe, right?
No. But
no? They seemed to want me to sign up when I went there.
Okay.
Maybe it's just for me.
They must have known it was you.
I didn't pay though. But yes. So Tolle was talking about this he's mentioned this in many of his works, and I believe he talked about it particularly in the book or in the talk on miracles, that miracles can happen or miracles abound or something like that. It was like I was reading up what he said, but you give me what struck you about this particular topic, because it was from you.
It's my fault.
Yes, but not in the way you mean.
Oh, so funny. Well, it all really, the kernel of this is I was contemplating what soul actually is. And because most people have a tendency to confuse or roll together spirit and soul. They don't see a separation of the two. And I was really thinking about, well, what is the difference between soul and spirit? That's how all this started. And we both know that these are both eternal aspects, but there is a major difference in the two of them. And spirit has to do with that spark, that divine spark of life that is yours. But what does that make soul? And we had always heard the definition of soul being that part of you that thinks and feels, you know, your emotions, and chooses in decisions, you know, part of the will. But there was something I was reading where the analogy, and it was, I guess it was a channeled piece from, and this person was in speaking with Jesus, with Christ, that soul is actually an aspect or a mirroring or a reflection of death. And I was like, wait, how could that be? What do you mean it's a reflection of death? And it went on saying it's a reflection of a fallen world. Your soul is where your inner reality or your experiences of life are processed. And in essence, if you do not have your eternal spark with you in that internal space, then you do not have life. because your eternal spark is life. So that's how all this started, because I thought, well, that means that the dark night of the soul is the realization that everything that you thought was life, or was your experience, your soul experience, is not eternal. Or no, what would be the word? You need spirit to be able to continue past this lifetime. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Your soul is limited in the sense of its experiences from birth to death. Although people start going into oversoul, but I'm talking about this particular timeline or lifetime. Because every lifetime is a specific soul or a unique soul. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think that ties in very well with a lot of reincarnation modalities and so on. But I don't want to get too lost in that. I like what you said about the fact that the dark night of the soul is when the soul is in essence it's in essence exposed to the fact that what it has considered, and what you mentioned is perfectly correct. The soul is that which thinks and can be confused into thinking that that's who it is, or feels and can be confused into thinking that that's who it is,
right? Or
decides and can be thinking that that's who it is. That's who. That all of these things are actually, if you look at them, and you said reflection of death, but they're really encompassed by the being. And the being, it ties back to spirit. The being is eternal, but the soul is an eternal part of you, but it morphs from incarnation to incarnation. It's actually unique per incarnation.
It is. Each soul is unique.
Mm-hmm.
You can have connection to other souls, and
yes.
And I think we've always said that reincarnation is not a linear process where your birth, you have your life, you die, and then you hop into another lifetime.
Right.
Going, linear, just one after the other. It's like, no, because your consciousness is much more than being contained by time. And if you accept that as part of who you are, you realize that you cannot truly, in that eternal aspect, you're not contained by time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I know you're trying to get that point out.
I'm trying to get the point out before you interrupt me.
Well, the reincarnation is not a linear process. I completely agree with you, and in that way, you could say maybe it's even a parallel process, and that's something that would maybe be a topic for a different discussion. But it certainly can be looked upon as a series of experiences that the being is having, each one tied to an incarnation, whether it's an incarnation in some fashion from, bound in time. Certainly each incarnation is bound in time because they are bounded by time. They come into existence, they live for experiences. They're certainly, but I'm not really trying to get bogged down in that too much. Just as the soul, you have the ability to. I think Tolle says, and this one of these things that we talked about was sort of from Tolle, but I will get to our quote too. I don't want to get too far afield, but as Tolle says, the things that are you are the sky, you're the being. And the things that are within you that cloud that are clouds. They're in essence what you think you are, your emotions, your feelings, your identities, your ego. All those things can be thought of as bound to the soul or pieces of the soul, which can even rise up and occlude your awareness of being, of the totality of you. Would you agree with me there?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's what we're talking about.
I'm hesitant only because it's not absolutely clear when you're defining the terms.
Well, taking the terms as you stated them, that the soul is the part that feels and thinks and decides. But, the awareness of that can be clouded by, ego identity that wants to say, well, I am the thinker. This is what I think. These are the things I do. And that is still certainly within the soul's purview. The soul thinks, the soul feels, the soul decides, but it can also cloud its awareness of its being, of the being, with all of these things, especially as the thinking portion of you rises up and says, well, I am everything. It's all about thinking. It's all about lists. It's all about this. That's what I'm trying to say, is that in this incarnation, one of the journeys you're trying to get through is to become aware that these are just aspects of your soul, the thinking piece, the feeling piece, the emotion piece.
And all those three aspects contribute to what you would deem the meaning of life.
Yes.
Okay, all three of those are what contributes to what you believe is the meaning of life. And Tolle's definition, too, is talking about that when that is taken apart or is suddenly not there, then you have no meaning, which becomes the dark night of the soul. There's
right.
No meaning to my life.
So, I was trying to walk towards the definition of that. That's what I was trying to walk to. And at a slow pace, I agree. But the dark night of the soul, many people look upon it as, and I think we'll talk a little bit about Campbell's quote, but in Campbell's quote, it's very similar to what most people think about the dark night of the soul. They think of it as the all is lost, everything is lost, despair moment, the low point of my life, the 3 a.m., just my whole life is, as you said, it's as though I've lost all control, I've lost all meaning, I don't know who I am,
right?
And it feels like death, and that's why I wanted to say that too. One of the other folks that I was reading about this dark night of the soul is that it aligns very closely with death. It might have been Tolle also, because the ego death, in the dark night of the soul feels as though it is dying, a spiritual death. And that's what makes it so gut-wrenchingly difficult. When you go really down into the depths of despair, it seems like your whole life, nothing has meaning. You don't know who you are.
Right.
You don't know why you're here.
Right.
You don't know why you're suffering. All these things come to an inflection point. They come to this singularity. And at that moment, that's when you're in the dark night of the soul. That's when you're in the valley of the shadow of death, which is the same way of talking about the dark night of the soul. And when people get there, it's an excruciating experience. We can speak from experience. It's excruciating. But as many people have said, and I think again I'll reference Tolle has said, the only path through to the other side is through the dark night, is through the valley of the shadow of death. And you come out into a different you, a different existence. You do die in some way.
Well, yes. What dies is your concept of who you are.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Who you think you are.
Because everything falls apart. And if you've walked through one of these dark nights of the soul, everything has fallen apart. And nothing seems real anymore. Everything you thought you built your life on is gone. And there is what you thought was certain is not certain.
Yep.
And what you thought was changing suddenly becomes very real.
The things you thought were true, can be like all your foundations are knocked out from under you.
And as you walk through this, the soul dies. It feels as if it's just, there's nothing there. But you're still alive. And that's one thing I always found amazing, is that in the moment where it felt like your heart is broken, completely broken, shattered, but you stand there and you realize your heart is still beating. And shouldn't it be not there?
Right.
Shouldn't it stop? Shouldn't it somehow malfunction? How can it possibly continue beating when I feel as if it's completely shattered?
As if the next beat doesn't matter at all.
So that's usually the visceral experience of realizing that you're so much more than this concept of what you thought was you.
Yep.
So much more. So you have to take a breath at that moment, and you still feel the pain and the loss and the fragmentation. But you're still there. And you're observing this. So it's coming to that point of realization that, life is much more than what I thought it should be and how it should run.
People express it as suddenly finding something beyond their selves, and strength suddenly flows into them. In Christopher's book, there was one phrase, I'll misquote it because even though I wrote it, but it was beyond death, beyond pain, beyond suffering. There's a place of stillness, of silence, of acceptance. And it's beyond all those things. And it's actually beyond your soul. You feel it, so all is lost. Nothing means anything. And yet you continue. And yet there's a continuance. Christopher continued, we continued, but we had all gone past the dark night.
Well, you're going through the dark night.
But you realize that when you've gotten, you can start to see that this is the place that none of that, all that didn't matter.
Well,
and yet you are still there.
You're still there. It's not that it didn't matter. It's more along the lines of it is not real.
Yeah.
You realize that it's a vapor. And the solidity of life itself is more real.
You're absolutely right. It does matter. And you know what the interesting thing, Margaret, is it has to matter. Right up to the point where you go into the dark night, because without it mattering, you wouldn't go.
You wouldn't shatter at that point.
You wouldn't shatter. It has to matter so much that it becomes a death. And you go through, and you come out the other side, and you are not you anymore. You're not what you thought you were. And you're not even sure who you are. And you look at others. Once you've gone past this, you look at others and you say, we're sharing an existence, but we're in different worlds.
Right.
And I'm not sure I know how to even speak to you.
Right.
And they look at you and there's a trace of fear in their eyes because they don't know what to say to you or how to relate. There's a chasm. And yet you can find others that have gone through and not the same experience. But you can see it in their beings, in their souls, in their eyes. And when you look at one of those others who has gone through the dark night, you can say brother or sister or just being. You feel their breakthrough, if you will. But it's not really a breakthrough. It's you feel that they have passed into that space through another path. Because there's an infinite number of paths to get there. But the space is the same.
Well, the interaction if you happen to find someone who has truly had a dark night of the soul, the acknowledgement of the shattering, the brokenness, maybe is the best way to put it. Because when you truly have experienced that brokenness, you are a changed soul. You're a broken soul, but it doesn't mean that you're not functioning. It doesn't mean that you can't heal and come to another level of wholeness. But a brokenness in the soul marks you.
This is a phrase I think you'll remember. I'm misquoting it again, but wasn't there something you said to me that the heart breaks and the light shines forth through the cracks, through these fractures, through these fissures. And it also gets in, but you have to be broken for that to happen.
Right.
And I'm misquoting it a little bit, but I think you know what I mean?
Yes. It's when the phrase is used in the Bible, it has to do with the hardening of the heart.
That's the one, yeah.
And most people think that, well, a hard heart means that, you're not feeling anything. But it couldn't be further from the truth. Hardening of the heart means that everything you thought you knew and the way the world should run is contained in that shell around your heart. And that hardening is like, no, my world is going to override everything because I know that this is the way it should be.
Right. Tell me the odds. I want better odds.
And when reality intrudes and the heart gets broken bit by bit or shattered for some people instantaneously, then what you have left is your divine spark that goes onward outside of all circumstances that are surrounding you.
All time, everything.
All events that are happening and every opinion that you may hear, it's all outside of it. You come to that burning point in your existence. And it scares people when they realize that you reside at the burning point of life. It truly, they look at you with very wide eyes. Say, how is it possible that you can stand?
Exactly. And from the other side, you know that the standing, your ability to stand is innate. And you never knew it before in this solar incarnation. And then you look back, these are all figurative terms, there's no forward and back in this case, but you look back at what you were and say, I never knew that how blind, how hard my heart was until it was shattered.
Right.
And then you look around you to others who are living in their shells and you say, I can't even begin. I don't have the. I feel too much compassion for them to break them, because it's such a hard thing to do.
It's not my job to enlighten you this way, because in order to do that, I would have to break your heart.
Yeah.
And that is not my purvey, my jurisdiction.
But
if you ask.
Yeah.
Then
very bravely.
Yes. If you ask, then I can present things. The grace that God is comes through, and will give you something that you can nibble on to try to wrestle with.
And if you come upon one who's in the dark night, and you've been through that, you can sit with them.
Yes.
You can go back there, because you know where you are, or rather you know where they are, but you go back with them and you're there. You know where they are, and you say, I'll just be here with you. You can't go through it for them.
No. But
wouldn't it be nice?
No, it wouldn't actually.
I know, it wouldn't. It would be horrible. But
it would be horrible.
If someone could, I'm just thinking from the point of view of someone going through it. Wouldn't it be nice if someone could come along and just go through it for you? No.
No. No, because no matter what, your soul is going to be walking this path, or rather the person who's going through the dark night
and that
has got to walk the path on their own.
But there's the nub of your definition before, Ma. Your soul has to walk that path each time, each incarnation. You can avoid it if you try really hard. But in each incarnation, there's a dark night that you have to walk through until you get to fully, out of here enlightenment reconnection. Because those dark nights are where you really learn.
That's the real work.
That's the real work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all the pity-pat.
Well,
or the talking.
Just, you become aware of the suffering that actually happens to people and with people around you. And you also realize that you're not there, even though you may see it, you're not there to solve the problem. But you may be there to witness their struggle so that they can continue walking.
Yes.
Because many times when you're in that struggle, you want to go back to the old way of functioning in the world where you can pick and choose the way you want the world to run.
Yes.
And people desperately try to reestablish that. But you can be in a reality where that's just not possible. So the people who go through this sometimes just need someone to hold their hand, let them know you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're never alone.
Be that witness of that presence.
And allow the love that is in you, because you have walked through this, and you have nothing but compassion for another who's walking through this fire. They've reached their burning point. And they can look at you and say, okay, you're still here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get through this somehow. Yeah. And that's when all those strictures, likes and dislikes, could have been, would have been, is let go. Yeah. And you allow what is to come in and interact with your open heart, and not your hardened heart.
The shattering of the hardness is excruciating. I think I said it earlier. It's excruciating. It is truly, in the sense of the word, being placed upon the cross, because that's what excruciation means.
Right.
Cruciate.
Mm-hmm.
So you are crucified through the valley, through the dark night, in a way. What's burning is all the hardness, but it burns nonetheless. What the pain is the pain of birth as well as death, because you're being born into a new thing. People talk about being born again. It's not so nice.
Nice.
It's not like a, wow, hey, happiness, let's have a... No, it really, really, really hurts. Now I can not speak to this, but if you've watched someone being born, which I have done, or if you've given birth to someone, it's kind of a excruciating experience. That's just the physical analog.
Yeah, that is the observation.
That's the physical analog.
Mm-hmm.
You know what we've done?
What?
We've gone past the bottom of the half hour.
Oh, dear.
But this was wonderful. I think let's just take a little break. Everyone, the dark night of the soul, just take a little interruption. We're going to come back on the other side. We'll talk more about it. Maybe we'll get into Campbell and relax a bit.
Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Moonstones and Murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and Murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side, as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on The X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the ArtistFirst radio network.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, C-Man. We are talking about the dark night of the soul, and it's a little bit of a heavy subject, and as longtime listeners will know, Margaret and I have had one perhaps extreme experience of what we would call the dark night of the soul, but everyone can relate. And what I wrote, it'll go up on the website, is, this is common to all human experience, right, Margaret? This is all people throughout their lives will come up to a point, great or small, because you shouldn't compare, of a dark night. Some tremendous challenge comes into your life. Sometimes it's near the end of your life, but oftentimes it's not. And to look at another going through the dark night and say, "Oh, I'm glad it's not me," is just fear. That's the ego. So that dark night, which comes to everyone at some point, is an important and I would say a crucial part of a soul's experience. It's the being needs these things. When we talked about, the fact that the soul brings back its lifetime, its life review back to spirit, all the experiences of your life. And the dark nights are the important, crucial ones, the ones where you really learn something, where you really go through something, where you can have your breakthroughs. And that's why if you go looking for, in so many philosophies and in writings, you'll find people talking about these types of experiences.
True. It is part of the experiences of life itself. You come to a point where it's not what you thought or not what you'd had experienced. And what you do in that moment is what matters. Mm-hmm. The choice you make and the willingness to learn is always important. Because many times people think that once they've experienced something once, then they know about the whole subject. They're an expert. And then it comes up again, and is that there's a variation that they never took into account. But are they willing to learn, or are they going to go back to what they think it should be? You see that a lot with people and more complex, if you would, their relationships. They approach a relationship a certain way and think it's got to be X, Y, and Z. And Z was not there.
But these true dark nights of the soul are existential crises. When you enter into one, the feeling of being lost, of not even understanding why you're here, what's going on, of all the things that are around you that suddenly seem meaningless. This is sort of one of the common themes as you enter into the dark night, is your life appears to be collapsing because the walls Margaret was talking about are of the hardened heart, of all the shells of what you thought you were, and it is exactly that. It's your concepts that either have been given to you or that you've developed on your own of what you thought life was, what you thought. It's all shattered. It's all broken. People talk about the indescribable experience of war, of having been in a war. And one of the indescribable things about it is that if you try to tell somebody who's blind all about the color blue, they just don't have any referent. Mm-hmm. You're saying, well, blue is like the sky. And they're like, I've never seen the sky. Blue is like the water. Blue is like my eyes. And they're like, all these things are great, but I have nothing to refer them to. So you try to tell them about your experiences of war, and you find that there's no common language. There's the words. I saw this, I saw that. but they're just, you know that they're just words. However, another who you look at and say, I've had the indescribable experience of war, and you have too. You may not even be able to say what your experiences is to the other. It doesn't require words anymore. I think, Margaret, you said it's beyond words. You don't put this into words.
Well, it's hard to.
I think you said it before. It's like you can just feel that energy flow.
Yeah.
The resonance of one other who has been through the dark valley, has been through the dark night of the soul. The specifics of their experience are not, they're not that they aren't important, but they don't matter anymore once they've gone through. How they got there, whether it was cancer or some terrible accident or having your whole country invaded and taken over and having to run into the hills. Yeah. Every one of those things is a horrific physical anguish, a mental tragedy, a breaking of you, of what you thought you were. But if you realize that the being on the other side always was and always will be, and that this was an important experiential death of the hardened soul heart to let the being come through, you can talk to, you don't talk to it, but you can feel that in the other. You can feel that in another who's been through it.
Yes, it is the heart speaks in that moment, and when it speaks, what I mean by that is there's a radiance, a feeling of openness and acceptance for the other person's pain. All right, you're creating a space where the other person can express their pain. Mm-hmm. Because most of the time when you're interacting with other people, if they feel it's going to be uncomfortable or
scary,
they close down. They close down so completely that, there's no space for the other person to begin to speak about their experience. And we all know that, all right? We know how that interaction runs. So when you've been through something like the dark night of the soul, the compassion that rises in you for another person suffering in this manner is always there. Mm-hmm. And you always have the space for them because it within yourself, you've made a space.
Some of it's that breaking that makes space.
Well, breaking is the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, your heart is no longer hardened, but it's soft and expansive. And this is what I mean by space. Mm-hmm. The expansiveness of the heart, and it contains compassion. People feel that. They know when someone is in that type of space. And if they haven't experienced a dark night, all they know is that there's something different about you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just relate a different story because it's very evocative of this. There's someone we know in the church that we go to who very recently was bereaved of their son. It was a very sudden loss. He's a young man. And the family is small to begin with. I believe there's just a daughter and a son in the family. Now, everyone felt bad about it. The whole church, everyone who knew of this, who learned about it, felt bad. They felt sympathy. But Margaret, wordlessly the other day, came into contact with the mother of this child. And all she did was hold her. I think you just held her for about 5 minutes. on the portico, on the steps of the entrance to the church, just because as she saw her, I know you can speak to this yourself, but you felt the dark night that she had just gone through, that she was going through, and she could feel that you knew. There was no words. You didn't say, well, how's your son doing? Or how are you doing, rather, not your son. None of that mattered. That's sympathy. It's a beautiful human experience to be sympathetic to another's pain. But to have the expanse to say, just open yourself, give me your pain, I'll sit with you in it. It can burn within me and you can feel a little bit less of the suffering and realize that there's a way through this because I've been there and I know where you are. And it's not, those words don't even need to be said. Compassion is, you are there with me. Your passion, your compassion, you are able to accept the other's passion, their pain, fully. You are experiencing it from the point of view of a witness, but it's so expansive that they can just be enveloped by you, your being, their being, and your being connecting, and the breaking that they're going through is accepted. Sympathy doesn't accept. Sympathy says, "Oh, it's tough to be you. I'm so sorry," and you move on. Compassion says, "I am you.
Yes.
I was where you were. I know what you're going through, and I'm willing to just be here with you." It's sitting Shiva is another way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
So you just opened your arms and you hugged this woman, and she's just silently crying, and you're just holding her, and it's so the rest of the world just kind of just passed by, as though they almost didn't see it. And I'm just watching them walk by and thinking, this is it. The avoidance is the fear, and the compassion is bravery beyond measure, because you just go in. You just open up and you say, I'm a being. I'll burn with you.
Right.
You want someone to burn with you? I'm right here.
Yeah, I'm right here.
I'm right here.
But it's that simple acknowledgement that, as you said, it goes beyond words.
No words are necessary.
But you are willing to hold space so that this person can allow a level of expression which brings relief to their heart, because they're hurting. The hurt doesn't go away.
No.
But the fact that there is space where that pressure can be alleviated, you can let go into that space safely, because there's no judgment there. And more than anything, it is the compassionate heart of God that gives the grace to ease that kind of pain just a little bit.
And Margaret, you're saying it exactly right. You're not taking their pain away.
No.
And you're not making it as though it has never happened. You're in fact saying, it happened, and I see it, and I am you. Because we are human beings together. And in being you, I accept you. I said, your reality is our reality. This is the common dream, and you're in the burning place. And that's okay, because I'm in the burning place too. It's just a different time. And time doesn't matter. When you read about somebody who's been in the burning place, that you feel their passion, even from 500 years ago, even from someone you've never met. And you say, yeah, that rings true at the heart level, because you have compassion through the medium, or directly in this case, literally physically contacting the other. But the compassion is, I am you. I am you.
Yes.
You are burning, we are burning, and it is not just okay, it is, and I'm willing to sit here and be with you in it.
Right.
And that isn't easing. It doesn't heal it. Years, who knows how long it goes by before that person may be able to give the compassion to another. But in the moment of giving compassion and receiving compassion, it teaches that person that this is the reality that you're going into, that this prior you, the part of you which is now sloughed away or broken, letting the light in, you've done something incredibly important, incredibly human, and I'm just here to say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am you, and you're coming into a greater, wider world.
Yes, and you're not alone.
Not alone.
Because when people keep running away from the pain that they perceive, and they have different reasons, motivations, I get it. But usually it's because they're afraid. You may be afraid that, I might upset that person.
I don't want to upset them.
Or, I don't know what words to say.
Yeah.
And that's really when you understand that this person who says this, and we give grace to them, but the person that's operating from there is operating from a point of thinking and feeling and deciding. That's your ego soul.
And
as opposed,
selfish too.
Well, this is what I mean. It's the boundaries of the ego. But when you get past all that, and hopefully if you've gone through the dark night of the soul, you will get past all that. You realize that none of that really is the issue.
Mm.
You don't use that as your start point. You use the humanity, the divine spark within you to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And when God's love comes through, that divine spark that you are, you know exactly what you have to do. It's never a question of what to say or how to say or mannerisms or whatever. You know exactly what needs to be done when you reside at that spark, that divine spark, that burning point. You just know.
And you just know. When you're in the burning point and someone comes to you with sympathy, yes, you could be annoyed and upset because you know that they're asking you to come to them, to meet them in their shell and say, oh, yes, so thank you very much. Oh, yes. And the burning point, the point of acceptance, the point of compassion, you go to them. You sit in the flame with them, and you accept that this is me, it could be me, it was me, it is me. Their burning point, their point of despair is not something to be shunned or to be treated as though, oh, geez, it's tough being you. No one else is like you, but, you probably deserve it. Or geez, I'm glad I'm not in your shoes. No, we are all in your shoes.
Well, it's like in that story in the Bible about Job. All his friends came around him and basically said, you must have done something to get this kind of punishment.
Right, the sympathy was, oh, well, I wonder what Job did that was so bad that he deserves all this.
It's like, what kind of friends do you have?
But that's exactly it. Those folks are looking to justify their own. They're saying, well, I must be good because look at Job. He must be bad because it's not happening to me.
He must have done something that he's not telling us.
Right. But compassion goes there and says, I know you did nothing wrong. I know you did everything that you could possibly do. That there, as you said, there's no judgment. You don't go there, well, if you tried this, didn't you try the tea tree oil? Didn't you try these type of things? Oh, if you had only done this treatment or that treatment. If you just listened to me, everything would have been fine.
Yeah, you should have gone the holistic road, not the allopathic road.
And you go there and say, your son is dead.
Mm.
I am you. I'll hold you. That's it. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you did everything that was humanly possible, but don't worry, don't beat yourself up. Just be in this moment and realize that suffering comes to all of us.
Right. That other world that you thought you belonged to really doesn't exist.
It's a fake.
It's a vapor that dissipates, and you are now in the real world.
Yeah.
And most people would run away screaming.
Yeah, because the lie is so much more comfortable.
Oh yes. The hardened heart is an easier thing to bear, but the heart that burns there are no words for that one.
Yeah. And you can put your existence upon the line. You can hang yourself upon a cross and give all and be that witness to the suffering and to the compassion for which you're doing this.
Right.
Because those when you put yourself in the burning place for another, when you put yourself in the burning place for another, you even realize a greater truth, that the suffering you're going through is the same suffering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is no difference.
There's no difference.
Maybe we should just read Campbell real quick.
We better at this point because we're almost out. Let's close a little bit with Joseph Campbell because we love Campbell.
Yes. All right. The dark night of the soul comes just before revelation, when everything is lost and all seems darkness. Then comes the new life, and all that is needed.
Joseph Campbell. And Campbell had a deep understanding of this sort of stuff, and he got there not necessarily through suffering, although I think he did have suffering in his life, as we all do. But he got there through studying the mythos, the heroic journey, because this is the compassionate journey through the burning place is also the heroic journey.
I'd like to just bring up this point that when you witness for another the suffering that they're going through, and they choose to be a hero in this moment, that is an extremely important gift that you as the witness is able to give. All right. And that is the compassion of God's heart, where he sees it all. He sees it all, and you are not alone.
And with that, let's bring a close to this dark night of the soul. And I am Michael Lance.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.